This is a follow-up to my 1,000-mile review with a brake pad wear analysis and replacement. I am not a professional bike technician. I only work on my own bikes, but the Kepler is a bit unique and it might be worthwhile for you to know how long my pads have lasted. I pulled out my front brake pads at about 800 miles and they looked okay, but I didn't have any new pads to compare them with at that point. So I just pulled out my rear pads to compare them to the new pads. This is the caliper. The two loosened bolts are the ones that need to be removed to get to the brake pads, and the caliper lifts off. It is still connected to the brake line, so I want to be a little bit careful of it, but if I turn it over a bit, I can see the brake pads. I can't tell much from this view, so I'm going to take them out. That cotter pin has to come out. I used a thin blade screwdriver to pry it up, then straightened it more with some needle nose pliers. The cotter pin comes out from the other side, then I'll have to wiggle those brake pads out of there. They come out in the spring hanger. This is the pad that came out of the bike. E10 designates the pad material. The rest of the numbers were different on the new ones that I found. My brakes haven't squeaked or done anything unpleasant, so I went with the same pads as the original. I measured the backing plate and pad and compared them to the new ones, which showed them to be 43 to 55% worn depending on where I measured. They could have been used a bit more, but there are some thin spots on them, so it's just as well to change them. I did have some cotter pins the right size, and while making sure they were stainless, discovered that the old one was not stainless. Good stainless is not magnetic. Not very good stainless may be magnetic. The originals were very magnetic. It was painted and I didn't see any sign of rust, but it's better to use a new pin. My next job was to find a tool to pry the brake pads apart so that they would fit over the disc. I found a thick putty knife and scrubbed it clean really well so it wouldn't contaminate the pads, and that worked really well. The bolts can be almost snugged down, but the brakes will have to be applied to center the caliper on the disc before they can be tightened. I used my parking brake to hold the brake on, but a Velcro strap would have been fine. And that takes care of the rear pads. The front pads look much better than the rear pads, though I think I use them equally hard. Since I ride a lot of dusty roads, it could be dust is getting on the rear disc and causing the pads to wear more. So for me, I'll check the rear first next time to see how they're wearing. At least now I have a baseline of how long I can go. The front pads look good enough to keep as spares. From the looks of them, I'd say I could have gotten 2,000 miles out of the front pads, but the rear pads with the thin spots make me a little nervous, so I'm just as happy to change them now. Waiting too long runs the risk of the metal backing plate wearing into the brake disc and ruining it. And it's cheaper to change the pads than the disc. Now I'm going to have to remember to break these pads in gently like I did when the bike was new. And that's about all I've got on that. Hope you all have a great day and ride safe.